As men, we can't comprehend this idea of going on a date with someone we wouldn't want to have sex with or being in a relationship with someone who physically abuses us. There's just things like, of course, we would never do this, but women will do that. And so it's very confusing for us as men. You or someone you know has gone on a date with a man you had no intention of having sex with. Has that ever happened? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Yes. All of you ladies know, or you yourself, or you know someone who went on a date with a man you would have no intention of having sex on. Guys, Tristan just walked out. Tyler, Rolo, do you know any guy who goes on a date and spends money with a woman he is not interested in having sex with? Have you ever heard of that?
Nope.
No. It does not happen.
Definitely not. Unless it's his sister or mom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've done this on multiple times where if I know that I am not interested and you've taken the time out, I actually pay for dinner.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a huge,
that'd
be a huge sign right there.
For the dinner. But I let you know early on, like, hey, look, like, I'm not going to sleep with you. I think you're really cool. I love the fact that you work in the Raiders Stadium and you probably get free Raiders tickets. So I accepted this date, and I'm just going to let you know right now. But I will pay for dinner, and we're going to go smoke.
Good on you.
I've done that like twice.
That's nice.
Whoa, sex. No,
anyway, so the point I was trying to make is there's another thing. Like if we were a man, if I'm a man,
romance me a little bit.
I'm trying to think. If we were in a relationship with someone who was as big and strong as us and they were beating us, we would just leave. I'm sorry, most men would just be like, I don't want this, and I would leave. Yet women often will stay in these relationships for long periods of time with men that are physically abusive, and it's very confusing for us on the outside looking in. Which goes hold on before you say what you're going to say, which goes back to Sadia's thing about what I call equilibrium. If you grow up around a lot of chaos becomes where you find your equilibrium, and that's how as men we can't comprehend this idea of going on a date with someone we wouldn't want to have sex with or being in a relationship with someone who physically abuses us. There's just things like of course we would never do this, but women will do that, and so it's very confusing for us as men.
I thrive in the chaos.
You can go first.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so I was going to say, like, growing up, my parents, they were totally, like, soulmates, together from 14. And that's really rare. However, I always wanted to have, like, that. I always wanted to have what my parents had. But it didn't work out like that. And unfortunately, I have been with men who I thought was like my person, and they ultimately were actually either mentally abusive or emotionally abusive, physically even too. But it's like, for me personally, it's like my heart is like, I'm just like attracted to the person, and I just like have so much love for that person.
Yeah.
Like you just want them to be better, hope for change.
You're explaining the point I'm trying to make is that there's this attachment that women have to men that is outside the understanding of men's attachment towards women, I think. Because again, one more time, I see men staying in abusive relationships, but I get why they're doing that. They're doing it because they get to continue to have vagina. I totally understand what's going on
very
there.
Simple.
It's very, very fucking simple. We're not complicated. But I see women often, and they'll stay in relationships where they're getting beaten. In fact, if you guys remember the O.J. Simpson trial, one thing that Martha Clark did that really screwed her case up is that she believed that she was going to paint O.J. Simpson as a woman beater, and then that was going to be the end of it. Because there were 21 times that they called the police on O.J. Simpson, 21 times for domestic abuse. And they thought, if we paint him as a white woman beater, then we can then paint him as a murderer as well. What he didn't understand is that among African-American women, which there were 9 African-American women on the jury, 69% of them thought that some domestic abuse was acceptable. And so they weren't able to paint him as a domestic abuser. Yeah. Yes, that's part of the reason why he got off.
Do you remember when, was it Chris Brown that beat up on Rihanna?
Rihanna, yeah.
And there's just big Twitter storm of women who were like, he can beat me up anytime he wants to.
But hold on.
Like, you ever seen Chris Brown at Dre's?
It doesn't matter. One more time. After he beat Rihanna, I was with Love Drop, Chris Odom, the guy from Venetian Arts, and I said, I will bet you any amount of money after, you saw the pictures. He beat the crap out of her. I said, I'll bet you any amount of money she goes back to him, and she was with him 2 weeks later. They got back together again. So what ladies, maybe you can explain, what is that?
I believe I think it's a 2-part reason. So one that I don't exactly know the answer to, but the first one being women's natural ability. Some have it more than others. It just kind of comes with the territory to be more nurturing and loving. We think that we can
So the
heal.
nurturing stuff makes you look past the bad stuff.
Yeah, because we think, we think I can love this out of you, or maybe I can. We think that we're fixers. We're naturally fixers. Now, I'm not saying everyone,
Sure.
but a good number of women, we're just like, I see your pain. We have a higher level of empathy. We're like, oh, you're fucked up like this because of your childhood, or because of this, or because you're having this in your life, even though we feel like the man can't recognize that. So I think that's one part to it. Not everyone, but I think a good majority of women have had more faith in a man than he's had in himself to change. The other thing is, and I preach this I'm a girl's girl, and I preach this to my girls and my friends and just anyone in general, young girls, is that you cannot fall in love with potential. And when you see a man and he's showing you, when someone shows you their true colors, you have to believe him. He's whooping your ass. He's talking crazy to you, calling you out of your name. And you're sitting here like, maybe he'll change. He showed you who he is, believe him. And we're not going to fall in love with potential with people. We're not going to do that. Someone shows you who they are, and that is who they are. Leave.
You hope they can change.
No, but you're giving great advice, but you have to give that. You notice me as man, I never tell, hey buddy, you need to stop letting your woman hit you. Like I don't have to give that advice, but you're giving that advice, and that's my point. That's my whole point. Is like it's good advice because you have to keep giving it though. Why do you have to keep giving it? Why are so few girls listening to this? Anyway, go ahead. What you say, Roland?
Are your parents still
Because
together?
until internally you're just done with it, that's the only time change can happen. So it like sometimes being abused once just isn't enough for someone. Some people, they could have a terrible upbringing, which, like you said, you thrive in chaos because chaos is what you're used to. It's become your normalcy. Yes. So since
you
it's
think
become
everyone's going through it,
right? So since that's become your normal, you know what I mean. Like you don't know how to escape it because it feels familiar, and your lows, and you also don't know too, like. You give a portion of the story to tell, but was it provoked? You know what I mean? Did you play a role in how it escalated to that point?
Yeah.
It's never right. You know what I mean? No one should ever beat anybody. No one should ever lay hands on another person, period. Yes. But it does happen. And if it does happen, well, how did it happen? What happened? Was somebody not listening? Was somebody giving silent expectations? Did somebody, respond a certain way, or were buttons pushed too much? Did you say stop and the other person didn't listen, and as a result you had to protect yourself? What the fuck happened? Nobody discusses that part. You just hear the backlash of it, and
Lindsay,
all of that plays a factor.
Lindsay, he talked back to you and you had to beat his ass.
it happens.
I mean, it could happen.
You elaborated that beautifully. That was great.
Lucy, are your parents still together?
So I actually grew up very odd, different, whatever. My mom passed away 6 years ago, and my parents were 30 some odd years apart. My dad's 80. He just turned 84 a few days ago. And my mom passed away when I was pregnant with my daughter about 6 years ago. So, but they were together. This is where I had to preface it with it was a little bit odd. They were together. They were married for 30-something years, something like that, 20-something years, something like that. And my dad is a widower, so they were married when my mom passed away. But they were each dating different people. They had separated about 5 years prior. My dad was dating his elementary girlfriend. My mom was dating her first love that she should have married a long time ago. And they were happy. They were happy. They were cool. They were separated. They didn't plan a divorce. It was just never. They just didn't care. They weren't going to divorce. It was too much trouble. So
and your parents are still together, I take it? Vicky?
Well, my dad passed away when I was 21. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And your parents still together?
Raised by single mom. Dad died when I was 12. Yeah.
No, they're not together.
They're
so
not. Do you have brothers or sisters?
I'm an only child.
Do you have brothers or sisters?
I have 5 brothers.
Wow.
And I'm the baby.
Same.
Only child.
Same.
Yeah. Same. And your parents still together?
No, my mom loved my dad for a woman.
I see. Do you have brothers and sisters?
I have a brother.
You have a brother. No. So the reason I'm asking is just I'm wondering, does that sort of color the expectations that you have, in your relationship? Are you when you're looking for a long-term relationship? I would presume, because it'd be different than if you're one-night stand kind of thing. But
it makes a difference for me personally. I saw my parents fight a lot, not physically, but verbally. They were just. I always describe it as my dad was the wealthy, successful, older guy. My mom was a supermodel. She was a beauty pageant queen, all of that. She was also very talented, an Ivy League graduate herself, but they were meant to have this cool little spiff. That's why I moved to Vegas, because they had a great life here in Vegas. They were meant to do that, and then they took it too far. Their personality types clashed too much. So I saw them fight a lot growing up. So for me, in a long-term relationship, I have a child, and I always plan to have kids, and I want more. I don't want my child to see that. So my basis for a relationship would be, as soon as I see one of those red flags that reflected my childhood and what I saw growing up, I got to cut it short.
Well, see, that's what, and one of the reasons I'm asking is because in Sadia's thing, she's saying why women want what they're used to. Is it because like you want to have like what your parents had? Like maybe you don't because of what happened.
Yeah,
with
it's the
your parents.
opposite for
But
me.
if you're so that was what you're used to.
There were
but
certain things I
you-
respected and loved
but,
about it,
but
though.
Vicky, you were used to two loving parents, and that's really what you're after now in a long-term relationship. That's what you're.
No, totally. Like,
But it's not happening. It's just that's what you want. Doesn't
No,
mean you can
it's-
have it. It just.
yeah, no, I mean, that would be my ideal. Because, like, to see that, it's just beautiful. And you just want to, I don't know, just to have, like, the example, like, when you're growing up and seeing your family together and just, like, be together no matter what. Like, you have each other. Like, it's really. Sorry, I'm emotional because
It's okay.
I miss my dad so much.
okay.
Like, it's really, really hard. I like it.
But that's
He
what
was the
that's what you're
best-
looking for.
He was the best man that, like, ever existed in my eyes. And, like, he was just so awesome. And, I'm sorry.
No,
okay.
no,
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 that's
no.
fine.
That's-
That's
So how about this?
Totally
Could,
fine.
could we say this? Maybe
Really
what
good
we
guy.
what we experience growing up maybe can cloud the lens with which we see what we're attracted to. Does that make sense? Because there cannot be a 100% correlation. There's no such thing. Otherwise, what you'd find is every single parent child would all have the same proclivities, and they don't. We find that it's not like parenting matters somewhere between 10 and 7% of a child's personality. So if that's the case, then I think what happens is the chaos. What the way it was explained to me, I can't remember which book I read about this, but parenting matters about 7% of someone's personality, unless it's bad parenting.
Right.
If it's really bad, which includes not feeding them, physical abuse, verbal abuse, then parenting affects a larger percentage of the child's personality, and it can change the lens with which we see things. But the other part of it is genetic.